Tomorrow is a 48 First Alert Weather Day, sponsored by Mr. Rooter Plumbing for all your emergency plumbing services.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. You got me for this fast cast. We're talking all about this winter storm. We've been talking about it for a while, and again, a little fatigue kind of sets in as we all just wait. And that's what the whole rule of forecasting is you kind of start with one particular idea we think is going to happen, and then we wait for the outcome. And these are the fine details that weren't available, say, 4 or 5 days ago, even yesterday for that matter. But what we're looking at is an ice storm warning for the potential for more freezing rain and a significant accumulation on trees and power lines. This could just be for the morning and early afternoon hours, as this may change over to rain. More on that in a second. The rest of us here, all our counties under this winter weather advisory, that's going to be for this mixed precipitation. I think it starts as snow and sleet, and then quickly will change to freezing rain. Some areas in particular, from Scottsboro down to Fort Payne, may see prolonged periods of freezing rain, and I'm going to explain why coming up. And areas from Huntsville down to Madison, Somerville, over to, say, Coleman and Joppa and Arab, you're probably going to see this transition to rain. So we're going to be looking at a situation where the northwest corner of the state and the northeast corner of the state are becoming the most vulnerable, as the temperatures there may stay below freezing or real close to freezing throughout this event. And again, I still think it may change over to rain in the shoals, but that's going to be after maybe 12 hours of freezing rain. So again, this is going to be a prolonged event. Here's the upper level part of the storm system, just continues to crank out just to the southwest of Los Angeles. And the other thing we're concerned with is heavy rain. So changing over to 2 to 3 inches of rain in some areas, and we're going to have all this water sitting around, and then the temperatures are going to drop into the teens Sunday night into Monday. So that's when it all finally comes to an end. So there's several periods throughout this event that we could see an increase in hazardous travel conditions, a slight decrease, and then an increase again as we go into Sunday night. So here's the latest. We got our high resolution model guidance here. We're just going to continue to use this. And I will say it does start as a little bit of snow, and I think it's due to what we call strong evaporative cooling. So it'll be some snow, and then it'll be a quick round of some sleet, and that may accumulate to 1 to 2 inches. So the roads could become hazardous within just an hour or so, because this is happening before sunrise with temperatures in the low to mid 20s. So notice the blue shaded area. That is going to be the snow along and north of the Tennessee River, and right behind it by about a 10-mile wide swath will likely be the sleet, which will eventually change over to some freezing rain. Notice this time here. So we've gone from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. So that's 5 hours that we're watching this potential for this wintry mix, and that's plenty of time for roads to become hazardous early in the day. Notice the temperatures. They're still below freezing all the way down to Coleman, probably Gunnersville, but you climb the mountain up to Albertville and you're around 33 degrees, hanging out at 31 in Fort Payne. More on this area coming up in just a few seconds here. Notice how we continue on to the noon hour. Again, this is our graph model. This is a high resolution model our weather vendor provides for us, so you won't see this in other places. Notice 32 degrees in Huntsville with a continuation of probably sleet at this point. Sleet down to Decatur, and then freezing rain up close to the state line. Notice we still have freezing rain. So this is going on about 7 hours of freezing rain in the northwest corner of the state. This is when you may start having your power flickering, or you may have power outages, especially the closer you are to the Mississippi state line, because this looks a lot worse just about 25 miles west of the state line in Mississippi. Notice the pink still showing up here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but also notice temperatures are starting to warm up. So a lot of this will probably be sleet. And the thing to keep in mind, sleet are little ice pellets. They look like the Dippin' Dots, kind of ice cream. They do not go on power lines, so they're not going to attach to trees and power lines, but they can accumulate on your deck. They will accumulate on the road. So sleet is what we had 2 years ago that caused problems. People drive on the sleet, it packs it down, it becomes a piece of ice, and it's really hard to melt. So even when this changes to rain, we could still see problems if sleet is on the road. Here's 6 o'clock in the evening. So as we go into the evening time, notice we start to change over to more rain, even out across the northwest corner of the state, but still pockets of sleet. Notice areas of DeKalb County and Jackson County. We have what's called a wedge on the other side of all of this. So basically what's happening, there's an very low pressure along this boundary to the south that's bringing the warm air up right here in the middle part. But there's also high pressure well north that's bringing this east wind across Georgia, and it's going to reinforce this boundary. And there's also a lot of valleys over here, all the way from, say, up towards Timms Ford Lake, and all of southern Middle Tennessee is just covered with these valleys. So you're going to have these ridge tops down at the bottom where we have the valley. The cold air could get trapped. I've seen it happen several times. In fact, we've had several instances where people are like, why is nobody talking about these areas up here in the holler, so to speak, in Jackson County and DeKalb County? And that's because we're not aware, because we don't really get thermometers up here. We don't have actual reports out of here. So that's one thing we're going to watch. The Weather Service will watch that closely too. So notice how that wedge kind of pushes this area farther to the west. So may start to see more sleet again in Huntsville and Albertville, even though temperatures are above freezing, and still looking at freezing rain in the far northeast corner of the state. That continues on through midnight. So again, this is a long duration, lots of changes here throughout, but notice we still have rain here overnight. And you would think it'd be colder at night, right? But that's not the case. So there may be a break, and there will be some thawing that goes on as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Notice Sunday morning at 4:30, this is all rain, all heavy rain. The roads will likely become slushy if they were packed with a little bit of snow and that sleet, but we continue to see temperatures over here struggle to get above freezing in parts of Jackson, DeKalb County, and kind of sneaking in here to Marshall County too, near Albertville. So this will likely produce an inch of rain during the morning hours, temperatures in the 40s. So looking better here, at least Sunday morning looks good. But look over here, Fort Payne, you're still looking at 31 degrees, and that may continue on into other areas in North Georgia. As we go overnight, that's when we do expect temperature, actually late in the day Sunday, that refreeze is going to be coming through. So here's the areas of the northwest corner of the state. I'm including Mississippi in here too. You may be watching our broadcast here on our digital channels. Notice how much more ice, an inch of ice accumulation on some of these trees, power lines. That is going to be devastating if it does happen. What I'm hoping is the models is not quite picking up the amount of sleet in here, and maybe we'll get half of this. Even a half inch is going to be problematic out here. So we do expect some power outages from this. The winds are going to be gusting to about 25, maybe 30 miles an hour. So if you get this much ice, and I think it's a quarter of an inch to a half inch actually, produces about 500 pounds on a 300 stretch of power line. So again, some power lines could fail with this, even up to Harvest, where we have maybe up to a quarter of an inch into northern Limestone County. But you also notice not as much in the immediate Huntsville metro area down to Coleman. Now the northeast corner of the state, the other area we're more concerned with, Henniger, maybe approaching 3/4 of an inch there. We're going to have to watch the power grid there. Also into areas of Chattanooga and the rest of northwest Georgia, Bridgeport, Stevenson, about a little over a quarter of an inch there. And the same thing here in Collinsville. Less likely down here towards Gunnersville and Arab. So again, it's all about where you live in this situation. I mentioned the colder air coming in. This is Monday. Monday morning, we may be in the single digits. Monday afternoon, we are not getting above freezing. And you see where the coldest air is here from Nashville over to Jackson and Memphis. That's where we expect the snow, at least a benefit of the snowfall, to be on the ground, and the winds out of the north, so that just reinforces this colder air mass. And you notice as we go into Tuesday morning, 4 in Nashville, 14 Huntsville, and it could be a little colder depending on what falls. And we get above freezing by Tuesday. But I do want to emphasize, if we get some sunshine, and I think we will Monday, even though it's still bitter cold, I think the roads will thaw out. The sun does amazing things on the blacktop. So again, we should see drier road conditions by the late morning hours on Monday. And that's if we have those road problems that may begin as we get into Sunday night. Here's your 10-day forecast. First alert weather days for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Tomorrow's kind of your final day to prepare, but there will be windows, especially the Huntsville metro area south to Coleman along I-65 that I mentioned earlier, where we will get breaks. And that's where we will likely see high temperatures around 36. Again, you saw all sorts of numbers there, even some 40s. Again, we're going to warm up above freezing at some point early in the morning Sunday, and then we're going to crash as we go Sunday night tonight into Monday, down to 14, 26 Monday. And this is kind of the beginning of colder air masses. Another outbreak of Arctic air is on the way as we finish out the month. I'm going to have the latest forecast for you, summarize it again. Again, one thing I like about doing this Fastcast with you, you can watch it at your convenience. Plus, I've got a good 10 minutes to explain everything that's going on because it really takes a lot of time so people are not confused. You can also find updates on my page and the WFF 48 Facebook page as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later today.